Good morning. Where am I here? Yeah. That's the logistics here. Yeah, could I just say, first of all, I think the key issues for us today at the FAC meeting is, first of all, in terms of Ukraine. Ireland will be pushing very strongly in terms of the accession of Ukraine to the European Union and the need for a very unified approach to that. In addition to that, the facilitation of the further tranche of EPF, and above all then the Ukraine financial facility. And we'll be making very strong intervention today in terms of appealing for Europe to find a way to make sure all three are progressed. In respect of the Middle East and in terms of the bombardment on Gaza, we'll be making it very clear that there has to be and must be a humanitarian ceasefire immediately. We'll be asking that support would go to the Secretary General of the United Nations in respect of his quest and the efforts that he is making to bring about such humanitarian ceasefire, because the situation in Gaza is absolutely dire and we are witnessing a human catastrophe on a scale that we haven't seen for quite some time, and the bombardment of Gaza that is continuing is absolutely unacceptable. Innocent civilians are losing their lives, and to witness the loss of the lives of so many children I think is absolutely horrifying. In the context of the West Bank, we're very worried in terms of what is transpiring and the extreme violence of settlers in the West Bank who are terrorizing Palestinians, causing the displacement of Palestinians, attacking schools and demolishing schools. We believe, and we will be calling for sanctions to be applied to extreme terrorist settlers on the West Bank. And we'll be calling for that today at today's meeting and articulating the need for that, as well as the unhindered and unconditional resumption of development assistance to the Palestinian Authority in respect of the various programs that were in place. And we don't want additional conditionality placed on that development aid. It's essential that the Palestinian Authority is given the wherewithal to strengthen its position within the West Bank and potentially into the future within Gaza itself. So, and that, in terms of a sanctions regime, we would apply to the settlers in the West Bank and also to Hamas leadership and operatives as well.
Ireland has co-signed a letter with Spain, Belgium and Malta calling for that ceasefire that you mentioned. Is there a risk that we get back into this fractious debate about the difference between a ceasefire and humanitarian pauses? That your Swedish counterpart has already said that pauses were preferable because he didn't want to hinder Israel's ability to defeat Hamas. So what's the motivation behind that joint letter?
Well, the motivation from our perspective is very clear, to end the carnage, to end the slaughter of innocent civilians. The level of bombardment is on a scale that we haven't witnessed before, and it is resulting in death and misery on an unacceptable scale. And that is the motivation. It's humanitarian. If you analyse or read any of the analysis in respect of the bombardment, the size of the bombs that have been dropped, the frequency of the bombing, the destruction of houses, close to 60% of all homes now destroyed, thousands of people killed, the large majority of those children. That's unacceptable from any humanitarian perspective, that is why we're calling for it. That is the motivation, and we need to get on a roadmap to a proper resolution of this. It'll take time, obviously, but we have to focus our minds on a roadmap to peace.
Can you just explain how the sanctions idea would work? These would be EU sanctions similar to the sanctions against Russia and Russian individuals?
Yeah, I mean, there could be very specific sanctions because what the settlers are doing in the West Bank is undermining any possibility of a contiguous two-state solution to the Middle East, which we believe is the only viable solution in the end of the day, and the constant attacking and displacement of Palestinians in the West Bank undermines what is declared policy of the European Union, which is a two-state solution, but it also given its provocation and the level of violence that's now been used in the West Bank by settlers, it also runs the risk of provoking a further implosion on the West Bank, which is the last thing we need right now. And it's interesting that the United States have led the way on that particular issue, and Europe should be very clear in following on that.
Taoiseach, if I could, on that issue of sanctions on extremist settlers, now you said the US is already saying it's going ahead with that. France has said it's willing to take measures nationally if it's blocked at an EU level, because we know that there are some very firm friends of Israel in the EU who could do that. Is Ireland prepared to do the same? Because we're quite free to do so. We're not even in Schengen. We could put travel bans on people if we wanted.
Yeah, we can, and we're certainly very open to that. Normally we want to work with Europe because it has more impact in terms of trade sanctions, for example, or other types of sanctions, but certainly in terms of travel bans, we could, and we're very open to that, but we want to push that the EU should do it as an entity, notwithstanding the challenges, as you have outlined, that in itself presents. But we have to be very clear, I think, from a European Union level, that we do not in any way obviously do not find this behaviour by the settlers acceptable, but that we must take action to demonstrate, both symbolically and in real terms, our opposition to what's going on in the West Bank right now.
The destruction of the school that was funded by Irish Aid, what are the implications of that, and what recourse does Ireland have?
Well, again, we are part of the West Bank Consortium and so forth, where we always seek to get recompense and compensated, if you like, for any loss of EU infrastructure, schools, medical clinics and so on. So we will push for that. But it's an example and a manifestation of the terrorizing of Palestinian civilians. When I was in the West Bank towards the end of September, I met with a young child who was in a school that was attacked by extremist settlers. And this is a policy now by the settlers who are very fundamentalist in their view, to actually actively attack Palestinian communities, Bedouin communities, to intimidate them out of their homeland and the areas where they've lived for a long, long time. And that involves attacking schools and terrorizing children. And it's appalling behaviour, and we will continue to highlight it and do everything we possibly can to bring about its cessation. And I believe there are many people within Israeli society who do not accept what these settlers are doing, and understand how undermining their behaviour is of the ultimate objective of Palestinians and Israelis living in harmony side by side.
And Taoiseach, if I could, on the aid issue, the Commission keeps saying they're not holding up development aid for Palestinians, but are you concerned that the Hungarian Commissioner is in fact doing so by placing new restrictions or requirements, despite not having a mandate from the Member States?
Yes, we're very concerned about that, and we've discussed that with my Spanish colleague and other colleagues, that whereas we've announced a tripling, of quadrupling, I think, of humanitarian aid, on the ground, that's still not getting through, despite the fact that the various evaluation of the programme illustrated that there were no issues in terms of how that aid was being deployed. And so we don't want any additional conditionality, and I'll be saying that today. I'll be making that very clear, because it makes no sense. And the Palestinian Authority is under a lot of pressure in the West Bank with the increased operation by the Israeli forces in the West Bank. I mean, there's high operational intensity there on a level that was not evident, obviously, before October the 7th, but it's continuing long after October the 7th. To what purpose, I do not know, because it serves only to alienate moderate opinion within the West Bank, up the temperature and volatility, create the potential of further violence and implosion, whereas we should be underpinning the quality of life within the West Bank, underpinning the efficacy of the Palestinian Authority, and strengthening its capacity to administer its region. And that means the development assistance has to get through.
Can I ask you about the Gaza? Are there any more Irish citizens, as far as you're aware, that are still waiting to get through?
There are some remaining citizens. Some opted not to come out on that stage. Others we're not allowed out, if you like, or we're not facilitated. So we're consistently pressing for their release, but obviously with the attack on southern Gaza and the bombardment now, it's very, very difficult. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. It is resulting in death and misery on an unacceptable basis in respect of the bombardment. And we need to get on a roadmap to proper...
Against Russia and Russian individuals?
Yeah, I mean, there could be very specific sanctions because standing the challenges, as you have outlined, that in itself presents. But